Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is the day 3 of SPARK, organized by British Council Hong Kong, and I'm Yanki from Enable Foundation. It's our pleasure to join the SPARK Festival this year. So you can see on day 3 program, we are on the OK Dementia Festival online forum. Welcome, everyone. So we are joining with our team from the UK and also Hong Kong team. Welcome to this collaboration. We are going to talk a bit more on design and creativity and dementia. So this is we've been doing Enable Talk. This is our 9th edition. So we've been having a lot of discussion on design and social issues, and a lot of them are actually related to dementia, because dementia is one of the biggest topics we've been working in the past 4 years as not just problem solving, but a more creative response. So today, really happy to have you guys to join us to have more discussion about this specific topic. So what we did for the SPARK Festival this year, we have 2 events. So we have done a Wednesday workshop, which is about design.
Thanks so much, Jane.
Dementia thing.
Bye.
Someone is talking.
Yeah, it's so strange.
Yeah. But I think maybe, yeah, we have done a workshop on Wednesday, which is a really interactive, very cheerful one about dementia, even though it's not an easy topic, but I think everyone seems to really enjoying the creativity part. But I think we did need to do from the last workshop, we do need to do some housekeeping. So for example, please mute yourself unless you're talking, and we will have a public Q&A at the end of the first hour. So so please raise your hand when you have a questions until after the first 2 speakers have talking about their project. And also for safeguarding reasons that we don't, please avoid to have private messaging to the others. But I think if you have any problem, please email to British Council Hong Kong, and we will make the link for connection. And would be lovely to see most of you. So hopefully some people, if you can have your video on, but we will be really lovely to see some of you and having this face-to-face conversation. But if you have any questions, do let us know. There's some technical problem, but we are also this is will be recorded. At the same time, we are streaming live on YouTube. Hopefully more people, especially from the UK and the Hong Kong, and can join together. So this can be shared more people as a conversation piece. So I think my housekeeping notes is done. So as I say, we're really glad to be part of SPARK, and because the topic for SPARK is about UK and Hong Kong partnership, is about inclusion. But for us, I think it's more important to have this social impact through our practice as a designers. So we are Enable Foundation, education charity and social design collective based in Hong Kong, but we're looking at global issues like dementia and aging, working with different NGO charity in different city. So we really hope that this can be a conversation to start. Everyone can be part of this creative journey with us together. And then Enable Foundation, we really want to enabling everyone being creative, and we also respect everyone is an ingenuity person that can contribute to design and creativity. So this is why we call design by people for people. So we always going out to looking at people creative tactics on everyday level, and then together with our design team, we're working to make users, people, creative tactics into design for everyone for our future self. So we we have done a workshop on Wednesday. Thank you, Pascal and Ali, our creative partners. That is really interesting to see from problem solving to creative problem solving and even to this collaborative mode. And this is some of the things that we have done on Wednesday, which we can share a bit later. But now I'm going to pass it to, also I need to put an advertising call in for people in Hong Kong. Our festival is still going on until Sunday, and the latest showcase is happening in the middle of our city in Causeway Bay in Hodgson Place, which is where we have this showcase about dementia experience to general public, to thinking about the future of dementia. What if dementia is an object, how can it look like? And inviting our creative citizens to come to join us. There's many really interesting ideas coming up from people. So hopefully anyone in Hong Kong can join us over the weekend. But now also as an education charity, we've been constantly thinking about how we can do our project better, having different theory and also practice collaboration together. So we've been referencing this medical and social model. But I think we really advocating the cultural model as a creative agents that try to contribute and collaborate with our medical and social expert. And we've been working on aging topic, on burial method, on dementia, and also productive aging. And we as the creative agents that we're using design thinking as our method to really bringing everyone together, to empathy, to define, to develop ideas, prototyping and testing. But more important, we were asking what if and why not as a more disruptive innovation ideas that trying to rethinking our society. And so today I will pass it to one of our very important creative collaborators, Pascal Anson in UK, talking about our collaboration on dementia, which is we've been looking at treatment of Alzheimer's disease and dementia-friendly city. We're asking ourselves, how can we contribute as a creative agents? And then we've been launching this concept called Dementia Land, and also dementia, making our dementia-free, co-creating with citizens about dementia-freely community in the future. We've been passing a lot of interesting graphic design, informative design to really share with our citizens the global issues. So I think something we want to be contributing, someone is not muted. Yeah, we've been contributing to the whole society, looking at the new model for future dementia model. And looking how can we educate or inspire our public to think with the people with dementia and carers. Don't know, I think this is what I've been talking. So this is why we have this OK Dementia Festival starting a month ago. And in this whole month, we've been working with different NGO, different local community, trying to rethink about how can we make dementia okay. And then looking at different events and community activity showcases, movie sharing. But what I think today is really about this creative exchange and the forum to debate and also discuss about the future possibilities. So I want to pass it to, I think, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, and one moment, I'm sorry, because I think we need a record for this meeting. So it's okay if I press record for this meeting because we haven't done that yet. Yes.
Okay.
Everything is too fast.
But it's fine.
Okay.
Because what I want to do now is I'll just give you a bit of pictures.
Yes.
Yeah. Just because I want to pass it to Pascal. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slides for Pascal to really give a bit of what he had been collaborating with us. And then he will going to, from his perspective as a very creative designers and educators, and share his experience. So I pass it to Pascal. So Pascal, you have 6 slides here.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, Yanki. My name's Pascal Anson. I'm an artist and designer based in the UK. But I've known Yanki for 20 years and we've been collaborating on and off during that time. I work across a range of disciplines and a range of different media. And today I'm going to talk to you about really what my involvement is as a designer with Enable Foundation. So designers problem solve. And what I want to really focus on is how I've started to problem solve with Yanki, with the Enable Foundation, and how that might differ from how that might differ from other types of problem solving when it comes to something like dementia. So just really briefly, if we think about many people can intervene positively in the lives of somebody who's dealing with the difficulties of dementia. It could be a medical professional. Their problem solving will be very different from an occupational therapist. An occupational therapist will be very different from a social worker who's maybe problem solving about funding. And maybe an engineer will problem solve in a different way when it comes to trying to think of ways to physically make things better for somebody with a condition. And I suppose what we've tried to do at Enable Foundation is think a little bit differently about how design can influence problem solving when it comes to aging or dying, or in this case, dementia. And I think it's very easy for us as designers to lapse into that kind of engineering mode of this is the problem, this is the solution. And I think what we're really trying to look at here, and hopefully it will become clearer, is we're trying to look at everybody that's involved, really take a holistic point of view. So we kind of, instead of trying to be very specific about that problem, we're trying to open up the problem and rethink how we communicate, rethink who it affects. So an example is when we take dementia, it's not just the person who actually has dementia. It might be their family, it might be the carers, and in some cases it might be the general public. So for us, we see that as really important to look at the whole picture. And I suppose we are quite kind of open and flexible in terms of how we think design can help. And I suppose that's a little bit about what today's conversation will be about. So the image that you see here is I look quite serious in that photo, but people look like they're enjoying being there. That's in Copenhagen at the Center for Demence, and we worked in collaboration with them to make 5 or 6 different experiences and different designs for people to think differently about dementia. We're not going to really focus on that so much, but I think it would be good probably if we start with the Enable jackets, please, Yanki, because I think that explains it better. So if I talk about this project, I think this really explains our ethos when it comes to how we approach design and how we think designers can help in this process. So we made these 5 jackets, which we displayed in Eindhoven just before the pandemic. And really what they were they are problem solving, but really what it's about is opening up this topic and showing how design can intervene when it comes to talking about dementia and solving problems. So there's some of this which is some of these designs which are targeted at very different people, and I'd like to explain how that works. So in the first jacket, the everyday jacket, is just a straightforward blue jacket, which for us is the really key to the starting point, because without that, it's kind of difficult to see how the other ones fit in. So this jacket is presented just as a straightforward jacket which is kind of familiar to everybody. The first one is about understanding. So the Do-Re-Mi jacket came from the research where we found that some people who are living with dementia find it really difficult to remember sequence. So we had a quote which was about the sequence of a familiar task. It could be laying the table, it could be putting on an everyday item like a jacket. So if we don't have dementia, don't really think about the sequence. It's just intuitive. We put the arm in, we put the next arm in, we put it over our shoulder, and we do the button up. So what we really thought about here was the sequence of putting on a jacket. And rather than thinking about it in a numerical way, like first thing we do is put the left arm in, the second thing we do is put the right arm in, we kind of thought, well, what if you don't really understand what sequence is? or numerical sequences. So through talking with people, another sequence that was quite familiar was do, re, mi. And while somebody might not be able to remember the alphabet or numerical sequence, do, re, mi is stored in a different part of the brain, and do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti might be easier to recall than something which has a little bit more structure to it, like a strict numerical sequence. So do, re, mi is embroidered and printed onto the jacket, so that do is the left hand, left arm, re is the right arm, then there's the collar, and then the buttons. And so it used a sequence. It used the information that we got about how people living with dementia see sequence, and use that and put that into the piece of clothing. The diagram jacket is the next jacket in the center, and that was taking this a little bit further. So thinking about problem solving and how fashion, graphics, and also the 3D structure of how a jacket is made, the fabrication of that jacket could be used. So inside the jacket, there's a diagram about taking your left hand, putting it into the sleeve. We made the sleeve, I think you can see there, we made the sleeve white on the inside, so it doesn't look the same as the back of the jacket. There are arrows that point there, there's highlighters. There's a pattern on the button, so you match the patterns together. I think everyone's knows that how easy it can be just to get the wrong buttons aligned on a shirt. There is some information on the back about to communicate with people if they see somebody with dementia who's been wandering. And then in the pocket labeled A, there's some information about that person. It might be a phone number, it might be their name, and some emergency details. So this was really thinking about all the information that we need in a certain situation and trying to make it into a design on a jacket. But that design has a high level of functionality for lots and lots of people. So it has reassurance for the carers or the family of the person with dementia. It has a communication to the public who might be unaware of this, but it also is appealing to the person who has dementia. And this was kind of like a placeholder design. It was kind of showing how design can intervene with these different people. The next jacket is the empathy jacket. And really, this is not designed at all for people who have been diagnosed with dementia. It's to try and explain what dementia might be like to somebody who doesn't really know very much about dementia, or is trying to understand how somebody might feel. So we purposely fabricated this jacket so that it's very, very difficult to wear. It has multiple sleeves. On the left-hand side of this image, you can see that there are holes in the sleeve. So you put your arm in and it doesn't go into the sleeve. There are two sleeves. The sleeve on the right-hand side of the image is blind, so that when you put your hand in it, it kind of doesn't pop out the end of the sleeve. The buttons are different sizes, which don't really do up. And there are two backs to the jacket. So we purposely tried to make this jacket impossible to wear and confusing to understand. So this is a way, rather than saying people who've been diagnosed with dementia might see the world like this jacket you can participate in, you can try on yourself, and you can understand, hopefully, through this participation, the difficulties. Right, then the last jacket, the everyday dementia jacket, kind of goes back to the beginning. But really what this is about the idea of correction and collusion. So correction would be saying to somebody, no, that's not the right way to do it. And this might be somebody who has dementia, or it might be the way we talk to children, trying to correct their behavior. Collusion is just sort of ignoring that, just kind of going along with it, whatever that behavior might be. And really this everyday dementia jacket, there's no right or wrong way to wear it. So we deconstructed the jacket, we took it apart, we made it almost like a cape. You can even wear this upside down. And really this was in response to, if somebody who's been diagnosed with dementia puts on a jacket and goes outside and it's not put on properly, it's put on upside down, the buttons are not in the right place, maybe one arm is not put on correctly, or only one arm is put on, then this has an effect on how that person with dementia might feel, how their family or carer might feel, but also how others perceive them. So we tried to kind of circumvent all those difficulties and make a jacket which was so unusual and kind of high fashion in a garment that you could, yes, even put it on upside down and it still looked interesting. So these are the same jacket, but they're all different. And I think hopefully I've tried to explain how they work in terms of who they're for, and really thinking about how design can modify people's reaction, people's understanding of something like dementia through design. So that's really my explanation of those. Should we talk about those further, or if there's any questions about those before we move on?
Yeah, I think also as a curator or the organizer, we invite Pascal. I think you remember the first week we were talking in London in a cafe is like, we need to go to Eindhoven. We go to participate in this design festival. So when we designed this 5 jacket, the audience was design community, to show them or to share with them how we see designer role in terms of dementia, because I think the middle one, the problem solving, is the most direct one, right? We're trying to help to make people with dementia life easier.
If you get lost, if this happens, then this is the solution. Yeah.
But then we also want to share the whole spectrum of other possibility, or even furthermore, what will be the next step. And I think we got quite good feedback in Eindhoven. But I think it's also good to bring it back to today, for like something like today as a discussion, because this have been quite a lot of people, even in Hong Kong, we have some people like, oh, can we buy the 5 jackets? Like, why are you buying the 5 jackets for? Or what is it? Because I mean, it's really interesting about in a society in like Hong Kong, design is always related to commodity, to like consumers, that when you see something, it's very beautifully designed and then people want to buy it. And so it's interesting to have, I always go back to Pascal, say, someone want to buy the jacket. What should we do? Should we
I feel like when that happens, we're kind of really surprised, because that's not really our concern, I suppose, at the beginning. So we have this kind of like, slight sort of confusion of what to do next when that happens. But because really this, as Yanki said, this was an opportunity for us to show something.
Yeah. So I just start wondering, do we have any like clarified questions? If not, we can just move on to explain, because the old school is even more away from traditional design practice, right?
I think also I'd invite people to use the chat function. So if you don't want to speak, you can always use the chat function and use that as a prompt if you've got some questions for us about this.
Yeah. Okay, so then maybe I give you this a bit of like context of what this. So one of our project is called productive aging, and remember Pascal and I having this conversation about like what should we do about this. And I think we've been Pascal and I met in London when we finished our master, and we met at the Helen Hamlin Center, which is one of the center really looking at aging and design since the beginning. So I think aging for us, it seems something we've been working on for many years, but we also have this constant idea, like what that means, how can we do like differently? So I think this is very interesting collaboration. I've been looking at aging bodies and medicine, and then age-friendly city have been in our project a lot. But then we're still thinking about maybe we should do something new, and we come up with this concept called the old school, which is, I remember we did this conversation up in the breakfast. Remember, we went to, can't remember which restaurant, but in London somewhere. But then of course that this have been a very interesting journey for us to almost not conclude, but I think it's the next milestone of what we've been discussed over 20 years time of design and aging, how can we do something different, or bringing the actual opening up the question rather than giving a solution, right?
Yeah, I suppose, when we were 25 and looking at this topic, we were still fairly new to, we were young, but we were also fairly new to the topic. And I think, I remember one of the designers who we were working with on this topic back then had a badge that I still have, and it said, "By they, I mean us." And I think the interesting thing about age-related design as opposed to dementia-related design, it's not a given that we'll all get dementia, but it is a given that most of us will become old. And I think we've got this, and this really relates to what I'll talk about in a minute. I think there's really a sense of somebody with dementia is somebody other, or somebody that's old is somebody other than what I am. But I think the interesting thing about age is that most people grow old, and that most people will be in this situation. And so to be able to understand that when you're young is really difficult. So it was really difficult for us when we were 25 to understand that. It's slightly easier when you're 45 to understand that. But I think also in that intervening 20 years, we'd done a lot of work, and we'd grown a lot as artists and designers ourselves, and researchers and educators and all sorts of things. And so I think our perspective was not only determined by our numerical age. I think in that intervening time, our experience changed, and we could see it slightly differently, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. So we created Old School for all generations to learn about aging, which is quite an optimistic way to think about it. But at the same time, I think this is the true pictures that we truly believe in. Pascal, I got this 3 slides for you.
Yeah, I think if you go to the sketch first of all, because that's probably the start. So I probably need to go back a little tiny bit here. What we thought about was, if you just tell somebody something, then there's one level of engagement, which is somebody's telling me something about these other people. Like I said, if we have information about somebody else that we don't have direct experience for, we just process that information on a fairly superficial level, even if it's like a warning, like, watch out because you'll be old one day. You kind of think, well, I'm not at the moment, so what have I got to worry about? And I was realizing in parallel to this, when I was trying to talk to people about a difficult topic to do with art or design, and one of these topics that I was working on was about how to communicate perspective. And I made a YouTube video about perspective, because I think perspective is a fundamental principle of art, drawing, how we see the world. And everybody kind of knows it. And at the time, my godson, who was probably 11 or 12, had sketchbooks of perspective, but he didn't really understand it. But he was able to explain it and draw it, but he didn't really understand it. And that really got me thinking, how is he able to do this without a fundamental understanding? And I think it was because he'd just been told what perspective was. So I tried to redesign how we understand something fairly basic when it comes to drawing, but it is actually quite complicated, which is perspective. And I made a YouTube video about that, in which it wasn't just a diagram, it was something that you participated in and that you understood from within, rather than just looking onto somebody doing it, or a page, or an old master's painting. And then I realized that through talking to Yanki about it, we came up with this idea of a participatory diagram. So a diagram that you kind of inhabit and that you live in. And I think that was really quite exciting for us. And we really started to think about how to make some participatory diagrams for this idea of old school. So it's not just telling somebody that you need to have resilience, adaptability, mental determination, physical determination. It's how do you allow people to understand that through participation? So what we thought about with this was that we got down to these 4 topics that we really needed to explore. And we started to think about them in terms of we needed something to tie them together. So I designed a set of stations. There were 4 stations where there was a ball in each station, which helped you to understand and learn about resilience or adaptability. So these things are really abstract. So adaptability and resilience, they're kind of these abstract concepts which we know we need as we get older. But if you haven't learned them and you've just been told about them, then how do you learn adaptability? How do you learn resilience? Maybe we could ask the dog to go on mute, please. He needs to put his paw on mute. Thanks. So in each of the stations there was a ball, and one ball told you about adaptability, one about resilience, one about mental, and then the other one about physical determination. So that the ball tied it together. And this was a test, right? Because I'd done this experiment with perspective, and I turned it into a video, and it was me inhabiting the diagram. And then this time we wanted people to experience the difficulties of something like resilience or adaptability through participating in something. So that's how the design process started. This is a sketch which showed the ideas about how to work to that point. And then maybe if you can go to the next slide.
But can I think Catherine asked a very question. I think we need to, because I think this is crucial to understand the process. When we talk to Pascal, we have done, so instead of like what Catherine was saying, it's interesting to know how much intergenerational exchange there was, and did older people share their insight and experience with younger people and vice versa. And I think this is fundamentally how we believe, but I think we turn it around as a creative process. Is we went to talk to older people, and then we turn their experience into what Pascal just described as this 3-dimensional diagram. So I think what Catherine described is usually in a social workers or in this type of elderly center or volunteer group, is like we brought like student or young people go to talk to the older people, or in a this sort of like gentleman club that we would set up this cross-generation collaboration. But what we find out, the problem is the conversation, the dialogue doesn't go really well, because you can't just, there's always generation gap. So they may not be on the same topic. People on younger people not interested in what the older people talk about. So that inspires us to rethink about the interaction. And this is what, when we talk to Pascal, is how can we make this conversation easier or more interesting. So our target audience is young people who may not interested in older people. So what we did is, like Pascal designed this 4 station, and we actually install it in the middle of like an art gallery, and inviting participant, student, community coming to interact with all these tools. And then we always have a volunteers as a doser, which is an older person, and they talk with the participant after they interact with the piece. So it's more like a debriefing. And then the conversation come up really interesting, because they're starting to share, oh, actually this really inspired me, this resilient concept, what's it mean? And then the older people may tell them some story about resilience. And then the whole thing come up much easier, and also for us, or for the people like observing the process, is much natural, rather than it's just like this of like, oh, we put older people together with younger people and they would talk. So I think this maybe answer Catherine. At the same time, I think set up, this is why we do this. I think our main target audience is the younger people who don't really think about aging yet.
So I think in that process, I'd just add that a younger person can have adaptability or resilience within their own experience. But we know that adaptability and resilience is very important when you're older. And I suppose it came from the point that we were told that this was really important by older people. And then we were kind of worried about, well, how do you allow somebody to learn adaptability or resilience before they get to the point where they need it? If I maybe just, I don't know how much time I've got left. I'm probably running, I've already been speaking for 20 minutes.
Yeah, but yeah, I think this is, okay, this last two slides is just, maybe you want to talk a bit.
Yeah, I'll really quickly talk about, this one is a physical determination. So there were 4 concrete balls which got heavier in weight as they moved through. And I suppose this was the idea to really physically show and feel how the progression of the need for physical determination would occur as you got older. So we know that physical determination, or we were told that physical determination was a very, very important asset and something which you need, but we wanted to show it, but we also wanted people to feel it. So you can see here in this sequence that it starts with a ball which is 10 kilograms and then ends with a ball which is 40 kilograms. And you can go through each of these stages trying to lift them up. And obviously the 40 kilo one was very, very difficult to lift up, but you can see it, you can feel it, and you can experience it.
Yeah, thank you, Pascal. And for us, it's really encouraging that because our old school actually won the Taiwan big design award called the Golden Pins and special annual award on social design. So for us, we call the age, this is like, I don't know why they put it, it's called age ready through design. So I think Pascal, remember you were talking about this age ready, which is something we want to, I think the old school is the means, the actual institutes that we were imagining that maybe something can happen in the future, but the attitudes that we want to advocate is about this age ready. So it's really tackling ageism, trying to make everyone feel more comfortable about their age and openly about this exchange of experience.
Yeah.
Cool. So, and this is the diagram that he was talking about. When he
that's where it starts.
Yeah, we were trying to make it happen in the middle of Sum Shui Po in Hong Kong, which is amazing experience. Yeah, Pascal, I think it's good to pass it to our new friends, but also really interesting Professor Lynne Collins, that she will respond from her perspective. But maybe Professor can introduce a bit about the center that you're coming from, so give people some ideas. Or do you want to share the screen or let us know?
No, I'll just talk through, to be honest. That was fantastic, Pascal and Yanki, really, really fascinating. And so hello, everyone. My name's Lynne Corner, Professor Lynne Corner. I'm the director of an organisation called Voice at the UK's National Innovation Centre for Ageing. And also with my colleague Catherine Butcher, who's on the call, run something called the UK's Dementia Innovation Hub. And we've just found this process of working with the Enable Foundation with Pascal and Yanki absolutely fascinating. And our approach is quite distinctive because what we do is we have an approach called Ageing Intelligence to look at some of the solutions for healthy ageing in the UK and globally. And that basically is bringing together cutting edge evidence from research, but also a myriad of different projects and initiatives like we've heard from today, to be really kind of data driven, so that we are really understanding what the evidence is saying about some of the problems that Pascal outlined so well in the earlier talk. And then the second part is that we absolutely put human experience at the center of the design process and pretty much everything we do. So actually putting the citizen, putting the person, the patient, the carer, whatever context we're working in, and effectively Voice is valuing that collective wisdom, and valuing the human capital, the lived and professional experience that people bring to these challenges. So like Pascal and Yanki were saying, that what is crucial is that we absolutely are focused on what are people's needs, what are their unmet needs, what are their priorities, and what are their aspirations. You know, how can we raise the bar so that actually what we're collectively aspiring to design and develop is not just incrementally better than we've had before, but actually a leap forward, a step change in what is possible. So also what excites us is using data, using artificial intelligence and machine learning to really kind of push the boundaries, because people deserve that. People deserve what's possible. And the other side of what I would say we really value today, of working kind of in the SPARK workshops with you and others, is that international collaboration, because I think, as Pascal kind of highlighted, dementia crosses boundaries. It doesn't really matter if you're living in Newcastle, if you're living in Hong Kong or Copenhagen, Amsterdam. The fundamental experience of living with dementia is pretty similar. Problems with, everyday tasks, memory, people feeling very confused. So everyday tasks that, you and I take for granted, like meal times, dressing, as Pascal shown with the jacket. And using everyday objects can just be so confusing and muddling. So we have this urgency to use this intelligence that we've got available to us and design for making a difference. But what I also loved about the work that Pascal and Yanki have led is that challenging norms, because so much of what we do every day is a social construction. So the fact that we set the table in a certain way for meal times, it doesn't have to be like that. And actually what dementia does is just all the time challenge the social norms and challenge that. So actually how we can encourage people through evidence to really understand what that person is experiencing. How do we know? And is it right when we're designing to make assumptions, or is it better to kind of go down the route of really only working with what we know? Because actually myths and assumptions can be actually more damaging if we're kind of, making those assumptions about people's experiences than not, if that makes sense. And so I think that kind of whole approach of not just paying lip service and tokenism to understanding the experience, but really going beneath the obvious, looking for those nuggets of insight that are going to be really, really game changers in understanding not just what we're designing, but how. What is our approach? What strategies do carers have to cope? How can we listen to carers who just have so much knowledge, almost that intuitive response to what works? And actually through the International Dementia Hub and through the National Innovation Centre for Ageing and Voice, what we're doing with the Enable Foundation is actually collating at scale those nuggets of insight, those everyday knowledge that you accumulate through the caring experience, so that we can put all of that collective individual wisdom and insight together to really kind of utilize skills to see what's possible. And Pascal, I thought one thing that you said, which was really important, was about the multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary perspectives here, because you're so right that a doctor might see the problem of dementia in a certain way. Other professionals see it slightly differently. So actually, how can we have in our design approaches ways to really take the insights from those different perspectives and encourage that kind of knowledge exchange? Because I think in any walk of life, it's always good to kind of walk the walk from a different perspective and actually put that lens of understanding something from a slightly different perspective is just so important, and you get kind of a totally different outcome. So how you can actually unleash all of that experience, I think, is what we found so valuable in your approach. And I really loved the fact that you almost put empathy at the center of that design process, in terms of, really unleashing the potential for people to, at quite a deep level, understand what it is like to have dementia, because obviously, because of the challenges of memory, verbal communication, the truth is none of us really know what it is like to experience dementia and how confusing it is. So any sensitive approaches that can really understand what people are experiencing and respond to that, I just think is inspirational. And it's not just about making life easier. It's much more than that, actually. It's about, that humanity of saying that, just because you have dementia, it doesn't have to be an experience of despair. There is so much that we can do that is really, really positive. But I think that kind of grounding it in not making assumptions, but being very, very intuitive and thoughtful about the designs is really important. And the final kind of reflection I had was just how useful all 5 of the jackets were if you were in a training capacity, because actually that ability to kind of use the jackets to kind of signify, if you were new to dementia, if you were coming in perhaps a new caring role, or perhaps caring for a family member with dementia, it's just not in our experience. And so actually the potential of those products to actually be able to, almost kind of train people to understand what it's like to have dementia is in a really tangible, meaningful way, I think is incredibly valuable. The only final thing I would say is that, there are lots of statistics around dementia, but there's around 55 million people worldwide currently have dementia, with over 60% living in low to middle income countries. And that's expected to rise massively over the next 10 years. I think some statistics suggest that there's going to be 10 million new cases every year. So we've really got to prioritize dementia, because it is an extreme of human experience. And this type of sensitive design thinking and approaches, I think, can benefit people with dementia. But that approach, as you've shown with kind of old school, can just benefit all our thinking kind of much more generally. But the final point I would make is that Catherine and I work, as we've said, in the UK's National Innovation Centre for Ageing, which is about bringing products to life, commercialising products, consumer products and others that come into people's lives, into people's homes, so that they have choices, they have opportunities to live better lives, and in the context of dementia, better lives with dementia. So I do think it's important that your inspirational ideas and your products that are there from a design concept do actually have the opportunity to be commercialized, because people need tools, they need strategies. Family members tell us day in, day out that they need to have a toolkit, if you like, of strategies, approaches, products and services that work, that they can try, because everybody is different with dementia. If you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia. But actually having these products available is just incredibly valuable. But they have to be evidence-based. They have to be incredibly carefully designed. And I think what you have demonstrated is that kind of really intuitive, empathetic design, where you've taken different perspectives. And I'm looking forward to kind of continuing to work together. But again, sort of seeing those products come to life is really important to us. And perhaps that's where the partnership is, in terms of great lived experience that we can capture through our insight networks, your kind of expertise in terms of the design experience and so on. But then, our role in terms of helping to bring those products into people's homes. And at the end of the day, it is such an urgent priority, because day in, day out, families are living with dementia, but actually need so much more support and care in order to live well. So I just think it's an incredibly important area, and we've learned so much over the last 20 years. But we've got work to do. And I think that's why international collaboration like this is just so important, and would love to hear from more people on the call about how we might, collaborate and partner together.
Thank you, Lynne, and thank you, Pascal. I think we are really good on time today. We still got 10 minutes before we go to the second session, but I think we are still really okay on time. We're just wondering, anyone from the audience or on the YouTube live or British Council, Hong Kong, anyone want to have some questions for us or some discussion?
I mean, I think we took the, whilst we're waiting for that, I think we took some of the inspiration from the British Council video about empathy. And one of the elements of that video, it says, in order to empathize with somebody, you need to go to that place yourself in order to try and understand what they're going through. And I think that could be incredibly difficult if you don't have any experience of aging, if you're a young person, or dementia if you don't have dementia. So I think these are tools to help us empathize. What Yanki and I wanted to do was move away from this iterative product engineering perspective, where you make something, you test it, it goes backwards and forwards with one person or with a group of people. A lot of people are doing that, so we wanted to try and carve out a new way of design problem solving, and I suppose it's through this kind of empathetic or emotional driver being the preliminary solution, as opposed to something a little bit more physical or engineering.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I can see Catherine's got a hand up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a question, it's more of a comment really. I've been really encouraged by both the session today and the workshop session on Wednesday about the whole design thinking approach to dementia and dementia care, because what we recognise through the work that we do at the National Innovation Centre for Ageing and the International Dementia Hub is that people want to be viewed as a whole person, not to be defined by their condition. So that anything that can be done, that can design services, to design cities and so on, that allows the person living with dementia to continue with their whole life and to continue with the things that they enjoy doing, and also the people around them that care for them. Because we know that when somebody in the family is living with dementia, it affects everyone around them. And sometimes their lives shrink along with the person living with dementia. So I think design really is the way forward in allowing us to create environments where people can live well, do the things they've always enjoyed and continue to enjoy. It just might be that we as a society need to adapt and react differently. So I just think this has been a fabulous session.
Thank you, Catherine. We've had lots of conversations about that, because as you say, nobody wants to be thought of as a problem. And I think the way we've tried to approach that, and we're not saying that dementia is okay, but we've titled this part of the project OK Dementia because we want to reassure people that everybody can be okay with this not very good situation. And so that's the first step in saying, okay, this is not a problem that we're trying to solve. If we just relax a minute and we kind of see like, okay, this thing is happening, but we can allow it to exist in an okay kind of state. And all these different people, the patient, the carer, the family, and the public can be okay with this situation. And something that I keep going back to is this idea of parallel universe, which is really, really super important always to me when I design. And a really easy way of talking about it is like, if you think of something like Harry Potter or you think of Star Wars, if you start to question everything here, like, that's not right. How comes they can fly on broomsticks? How come there are different planets? Why is this happening? You just don't enjoy yourself. You have to suspend disbelief that all these things are possible. And we see the possibility of existing with aging or with dementia or whatever it is as this kind of parallel universe. And I think that's the approach that we come at it. So our starting point is not difficulty problem that needs to be overcome, that needs to be solved. It's like, okay, let's reframe this as just like a parallel existence that's happening, and try and get into that and allow that to play out and for people to be okay with it.
I think so. And I think I've been a carer for people with dementia. I'm a trustee of the Lewy Body Dementia Society. So, we deal day in, day out with people living with dementia. And it's about not reducing it to a disease condition of memory loss and behavior. Often there is so much that people can do. And it's actually focusing kind of on that positive, so as Catherine said, and also understanding that a lot of people living with dementia are older and therefore have got multiple conditions going alongside the dementia. So actually what we need to design for is just sort of great environments for people to thrive and to live well, and also take account of the fact that some people have got memory problems as part of that. But it's kind of, it's all the time, as you said, sort of, using our imagination. And I think what the power of design thinking is that it can really release that creativity to focus on, okay, here we are, but what can we do? Focus on that and emphasize that, emphasize the empathy. Because if more people understand what it's like, the more that we can kind of unleash that power of collaboration and multidisciplinary working to come up with environments, products and services that actually are going to actually help people on a day-to-day life. And it can be very small incremental changes. But as Catherine said, it's really important to see the whole person and not just to focus on the dementia, because that's just one part of who we are.
I think we still got 4 minutes, but I just thought maybe if there's no question, I think it's really interesting conversation here. Pascal, should we bring up your timetable to really continue this next step? Because
and I just give it, get the slide, and I'll just bring one of the things.
Yeah, so this is I think Catherine will talk about this whole person and also challenging the norm. So in our last part of the research, we have found out time is a very important element in terms of dementia. So this is part of the research we have done, we launched in January, is where the OK Dementia start. We actually reinventing 10 topic of dementia inspired by dementia. So it's not about addressing dementia, but it's inspired by our conversation, our dialogue with people with dementia and also their carers. So we're looking at like cleaning your body, counting happiness, also awakening our touch, and like finding strange, like all these things that sound so every day, all related to us. And one of the ideas Pascal was working on is called the timetable. So it's a table which to rethink about time. And so of course, on one hand, we can use it as a time planning tools directly go into training. But I think what Pascal and I have been talking from the day one is how can we imagine time in a physical way? Holding a year is so interesting.
Here, I have it here. So this is holding a decade. So I've made 2 very heavy objects, one from aluminium and one from bronze. So this one is actually a little bit too heavy. But I was trying to get away from this kind of calendar numerical, little bit like what I was saying previously with Do Re Mi, and thinking about, if you're talking about next week and you don't really have a concept of 7 days or 14 days or something, how that can be enhanced by having these very physical objects. So one of the ones that I've started with here, so we have morning, evening, day, week, month, year, decade, past, present, and festival as all ways to talk about time on a tabletop with somebody who's struggling with dementia. So I just wanted to give you a sneak preview of this one, because this is the idea of being able to hold a decade in your hand. So this is an incredibly heavy, cold, weighty object, which is meant to enhance this idea of, I don't know, maybe your daughter getting married 10 years ago. You could talk about it being in the past and really feeling the weight of this being different to something that might happen next week. So yeah, that's the sneak preview of the timetable.
Yes. So the timetable is exactly what Lynne was talking about, challenging the norm. Is like we learn a lot from occupational therapy, looking at reality orientation as a training tools for people with dementia, to really bring back to our reality. But then as a designer, we have this reverse thinking, like whose reality we're talking about. Are we getting into their world or actually pulling them back to our world? And I think the timetable, we also talk about a lot about a new language development. So it's not just about giving these tools to people living with dementia, but it's for us to prepare for the future. Can we have a new set of tools to talk about time, which is more physical?
Because a calendar is a tool to help us understand, and we've divided up in time up into a numerical system, there are lots of experiments that have been done with that division of time, which is incredibly abstract. And I think, like Yanki says, that this is the experiments with this project, they're allowing us to have a new language, an object-based language, which helps us understand time, past, present.
Yeah.
Cool. So I just thought maybe anyone to have a final thought or something want to share before we move on to the next part of this conversation, which is exactly touch on what we have been talking about, is about understanding dementia. And also really thanks for our amazing collaborator, Ali Hodgson, who have done 2 amazing, very short animation, but also really telling us what is mean OK dementia and can we OK dementia is okay. So I think the next hour is really about discussion of almost like what Pascal have done, is from a designer perspective, really unfolding the insight from the inside out and trying to bring other people to collaborate in the next step. But I think Lynne and Catherine, do you have any things, the final remarks or Pascal want to say in this part of the conversation?
I don't have anything more to say. I think we're on time, so let's not go over time. Let's keep that vibe running through to the next hour, so we don't run out of time.
Yeah, we just need more of this. I think just because there's more of this imagination and more of this creativity and collaboration. I think it's a fantastic initiative.
Yeah, we look forward to show you the timetable, because we are so excited about the timetable. Yeah. But thank you, Catherine. I think have been really, really good conversation, but hopefully we can develop it more on the next step.
Definitely. Looking forward to the info from Ali.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so we are going to the second session. Yeah. I want to show this. So I want to, first of all, I want to introduce at the background of what we're doing today is my colleague, co-founder, Tsui, who's going to, she will facilitate the second half of this conversation, but I'm trying to help her to share the screen. So let me do that first. And Ari, do you want to say something?
Yeah, so thank you very much for Professor Lynne and Catherine for this amazing conversation with us, and of course Pascal as well. So to do a little bit recap, actually we did a very interesting workshop on the stories with from Newcastle as well. So what we're gonna share today is this dementia thing. So we did a little bit of dementia thing, design thinking on how we can think out of not just about problem solving. But before going to Ali's OK Dementia animation, do Pascal and Ali, would you like to talk a little bit about this before we move on, so that we can have a little bit of recap of what we did on the workshop?
Maybe Ali can say hello to everyone, just introduction.
Yeah. And
hi everyone.
Sorry.
That's all right. Hi everyone, I'm Ali, and I'm speaking to you today from the Isle of Man, which is just off the UK. So thanks for having me.
Sorry, I had to try to spotlight her as well. So Ali is a award-winning illustrator, British graphic artist, and graduate of Royal College of Arts. We are very happy that we can work with her since our OK Dementia exhibition in January, because she actually created a series of graphic novels illustrating our 10 topics of ideas that was inspired by dementia. So here.
Oh, and also we have Sevra here. Sevra,
yes.
You're on time. You make it.
Yeah. So should we show Sevra as well?
Yeah, she's here.
Let me.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Apologies. I've just come from another event, so apologies for being a couple of minutes late, but I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So, hello, this is Ari. It's first time of meeting you. So I will be moderating this session. So where we want to share our collaboration with Ali. She's as an illustrator, and this time she's helping us to visualize what it means by OK Dementia through her animations and stories. And also she worked with us on a very interesting design things workshop as well, how to visualize how people think about how things works. So shall we maybe, Ali, would you like to begin with the animation, or do you want to do a little bit of like recap of what happened on Wednesday with the stories from the workshops with SPARK?
Yeah, I mean, my role in that was really just to draw and visualize what everyone was sharing and exploring. And for me, as someone who kind of specializes in visual communication, I just love it as a tool and a way to help people really see their thinking, I suppose. And so I think drawing is a really useful tool for that. But it was a lot of fun, and hopefully other people enjoyed it and found it creatively stimulating.
Yeah, so we hope to, like Professor Lynne said, we hope to see to give more sense of dementia is not just someone defined by the condition, but it's more about each individual as well. Everyone is a person. They have all different kinds of likes and don't likes and personality and etc. So when we asked Ellie to work with us on the OK Dementia animations, this is what we try to begin with as well. So we talked to her about our first idea about what does it mean by OK Dementia, and also we share with her about 10 things that we found that is on everyday topics. Like for example, we talk about time, where like Pascal has just talked about. We talk about seasons. We talk about happiness. We talk about how to say hello to people, how to talk about bathing or clean yourselves, and etc. So maybe I can pass the time to Ali. You can tell a little bit more about the animations, or would you like to, or Yanki, do you think we should share the animations first? Do you have any preference, Ali, on that one?
So Ali, I got slide here, which is the screen cap from the animation, and then the next one is the animation. So let me know, do you want to say something here, and then we play the animation?
Yeah.
Yeah, how about you jump in and share the animation, and I've got some slides about the process and my experience of that. So yeah, go ahead and share it.
Okay, so we were just going to play the animation. It's really short, so we need to pay a lot of attention because need a lot of thinking.
Are you manjable? Yanki, you might have to. The sound.
先，你聽清楚。你聽一聽先 ，OK？ 你聽唔聽到我講嘢先？其實
Sorry.
You?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Give me a little bit. Yes. Okay. Sorry. So maybe we could give the share screen to Ali. She can share.
Yeah, can you see?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, unfortunately the sound wasn't quite working for me on that one, but you guys can all go and watch it on YouTube afterwards properly, hopefully. Yeah, so my name's Ali, and I'm the illustrator and the storyteller for the animations. And just a big thank you to Enable Foundation for having me in the first place and inviting me to collaborate with you. It's been a fantastic project to work on. And yeah, thank you to the little team that I had working on it as well. So we had Lynne Hood and Alex Smith, who were the animators, and Paul Chauncey, who did the sound design and music for the project. And just thank you to everyone else who helped or funded it as well. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the process of collaborating with Enable Foundation, what the animations are about, and I guess my take on the role of design in response to dementia as well. So this is me cooking up a story, and just tell you a little bit about my background so you know where I'm coming from. So I'm a graphic artist and designer from the UK, as we were saying, and I started working life as an illustrator and then went on to study communication design at the Royal College of Art in London. And actually that's where I first met Yanki as well. Yeah, I've kind of dabbled in many different disciplines within visual communication. So illustration, graphic design, cartooning, visual thinking, systems thinking, visual storytelling. But the one thing that's always kind of really underpinned my practice is that I'm very much values led. So I'm really interested in how creativity and design and visual communication can be used as a tool for positive change in the world. So many of the topics that I work with are things like well-being, disability, mental health, sustainability, environmental issues, that kind of thing. So as Irie was saying, it kind of all started out with illustration. So initially I was commissioned by Enable Foundation to create a series of illustrations for this was in response to their showcase that they had earlier in the year with the 10 dementia topics. And then it kind of evolved into comics from that. And then the comics kind of naturally evolved into this idea of creating an animation. So this was some of our work from earlier in the year. And in the end, we created 2 animations, and the first one was called Mental Fishing. And I'm a really big fan of using metaphor as a mechanism for storytelling. With mental fishing, for example, we all know what it's like to forget things. We all know what it's like to walk into a room and forget why we went in there in the first place. We all know what it's like to have a conversation and just forget what you were going to say, that kind of thing. And then it's almost like this active process happens and we start fishing in the back of our mind, trying to find the answer. But the thing about fishing is that you never quite know what you're going to catch or how long that's going to take. And so in some ways dementia is no different. It's the act of forgetting and trying to remember is an experience that I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with. And what if every time you had to fish for a memory, you caught something that was completely out of context to your current situation? How would that make you feel? Where would it lead you? And in the animation here, our main character is having memories about things, but the memories and the things that he's fishing up from dementia land are not matching up. And the result is he's kind of caught between these 2 worlds or realities. So finally, at the end of the animation, he gets pulled completely into dementia land. And there are all these strange things floating around him. And, like Irie was saying, they also kind of symbolize the 10 dementia topics from the OK Dementia project. And then the second animation that we did is called Radioheads. And it's about 3 generations of a family. And the eldest, the grandmother, has got dementia. And it's kind of about each of their relationships to her dementia in a way. And we used a radio as the metaphor for this animation. And that came about after a really interesting conversation with one of the animators about their experience of living with a loved one with dementia, and how this metaphor of a radio really helped her understand and have more empathy, more compassion for what was going on. So I'll invite you to pause for a moment and just imagine that your head was an old analog radio. We're always receiving information, we're transmitting information, we all tune into different stations and frequencies all the time, depending on our situation. We kind of, in a way, we all live in this kind of mind-made reality that we create around ourselves. But, most of the time, these realities work well together. We can function, we can make sense of the world, we can take care of ourselves. But what happens when, for example, through dementia, the radios in our head start tuning into stations that aren't necessarily as relevant to the time and the space that we're physically in? What if the people that we love are tuning into realities that aren't ours as well? How can we be empathetic and compassionate towards them when our realities can appear so differently on the outside? And this could be because of dementia. It could be mental health issues. It can be many other illnesses. We all have this radio in our heads. And in the story, it's the playfulness of the child in her response to accepting the different reality that her grandmother is living in that starts to bring more harmony to the family. And you can see here she's bringing the grandmother the umbrella when she's in the shower and with her clothes on. So here's some behind the scenes images of how the animations were created. And it all started with lots of scribbling and doodling. And then the storyboarding began, and I collaborated with Enable Foundation and Pascal on developing the stories. And then after storyboarding, we went into production, and that involved huge amounts of drawing and redrawing things for the animators to work with. And then they did some amazing magic to make everything move. So thank you to Lynne and Alex for that. And then I started working with Paul Chauncey on the sound design. And that was, for me, that was a really fascinating part of the process because, again, both animations kind of really explore alternate realities and living with dementia. And so we had some really interesting chats about how do you convey these alternate realities through sound design? What does disorientation and disharmony sound like? And what does the reharmonizing of reality sound like as well? So aside from talking about the animations themselves, the theme that I was given for the topic of this was to explore the role of design in response to dementia. So I thought I'd just really briefly share a little bit about what I see from both my experience of working on these animations with Enable Foundation, but also in the context of being with someone who works in communication design. And yeah, because that's the world I know. And obviously, there's many other design disciplines who have their own take on this, I'm sure, but there's no doubt lots of crossover as well. And perhaps some of these will resonate with you as well. So put really simply, what is design to me, in a way, it's problem solving. As a designer, people are constantly giving me their problems, and then I respond to those problems through the medium of visual communication, and I do my best to deliver a solution. And this is in some ways oversimplistic, but in a way, dementia is a problem or a challenge. But what I love about the OK Dementia team is that it's not about fixing this problem, but it's about accepting it and doing our best to live with it and be creative with it and explore it from different angles. And obviously, as we know, dementia is a massive problem. I can't remember the stats that you guys were just sharing, but it's huge. So how as designers can we take what we know and understand about problem solving in our disciplines and apply that to the challenges of dementia? And hopefully, that serves not just people with dementia, but the carers of people with dementia, dementia-based organizations and NGOs, and also the general public to help raise awareness and empathy of dementia and create this dementia culture that OK Dementia talk about. And I think even even the scientists and the doctors and stuff are behind the scenes kind of looking at finding ways to slow it down and stop it in the first place, or find the root cause of dementia. Creativity is so important to them in that scientific process of discovery as well. So anyway, these are some of the words that just jumped out at me while I was reflecting on working on the OK Dementia animations, and they're things that might perhaps be useful from my world as a designer. So I've got things like play and flow state and storytelling, simplicity and humor. And all of these things kind of overlap each other, but I'll explain a little bit about what I mean by them. So play, play is like this universal kind of language or mode of communication. And here we can see lots of different animals that you might not, imagine playing together normally. But in the context of this talk, I guess, play can really help us cross disciplines and cross occupations, and that's kind of what we've been doing. And for me, this is where the role of design thinking and creative thinking can be a really useful tool for solving any problem or working with any problem. And that's one of the reasons I love Enable Foundation, is they're not afraid to play and explore and experiment as well. And, being in a state of play allows us to do this. I watched a really interesting documentary recently on animal intelligence. And scientists are kind of really wanting to change our definition of intelligence to being about a species' ability to play and therefore problem solve. But of course, that's kind of bad news for humans, because there's animals out there that play much more than us, actually, dolphins and stuff like that. So I like that idea of kind of redefining our understanding of intelligence through that. And then here I have some highly scientific scans of Homer Simpson's brain. And, scientists also show us that when we play, it activates more parts of the brain than doing anything else, which to me is just amazing. We literally can access more of our brain when we play. That's awesome. And, the opposite's also true as well. If we don't play, it literally shrinks our brain as well. So facing the world with this attitude of play for me is something that's really important in both my work as a designer, but just in life in general, I think. It builds trust, it's transformative, and it's linked really closely to creativity and problem solving. And all designers play with problems. That's kind of what we do. So yeah, how can we learn from play and apply it to dementia in new ways, or be more playful with dementia, like the girl in the animation here bringing her grandma an umbrella in the shower. It brings a different dimension into that role. Flow state. So this is very connected to play. So I think kind of consciously or unconsciously, another way that designers are good at problem solving is through being in a flow state or a state of flow. And this is where we're alert, we're focused, we're relaxed, and everything is flowing. And it's something that we've all experienced. So when I was a kid, for example, I loved drawing. I'd get lost for hours drawing imaginary worlds, and I'd lose track of time. And I'd be in this state of flow. And other examples that you might relate to are, mothers and babies, musicians lost in playing a piece of music, an athlete in that kind of in the zone while they're performing, or even, a beautiful sunset. And to me, this is kind of the place where the magic happens. And it's, our troubles are forgotten, creativity can flow, and it's where we get out of the way and we can really respond to challenges and be resilient as well, I think. So my experience of both being and working with other creatives is that they tend to be very good at stepping into a flow state, at least when they're working on a creative project. But I think what's less talked about is that this kind of state is also a learned skill that anyone can actively work with as well. And that's something I'm really interested in. And then something else that I think is a really useful tool that can be applied to dementia challenges is storytelling as well. We're surrounded by stories, whether that's TV or movies or the news, and we all have these internal stories that we tell ourselves about who we are or the world around us. And And, you know, for example, when I'm working on a branding project, it's all about, you know, what story do I want to tell through a brand's visual identity? And, you know, I think we're hardwired to understand story. These pictures are all from examples of ancient storytelling. And story builds empathy when you're communicating information that might otherwise be challenging to digest as well. So, you know, a kind of an extreme example of that is watching a horror film at home. You know, you might have a physical reaction to what's happening on the screen. You might be, you know, holding your breath, or your palms might be sweating, but actually, you know, there's no danger. You're sitting on your sofa and there's just pixels moving on a screen, but we have this physical reaction to the story that's being told. So that's, yeah, story is incredibly powerful. And we've been talking a lot today about empathy as well. I think, you know, it's amazing. When I started out as a designer, it was like empathy was almost a dirty word. It just wasn't used, and it wasn't connected with what we were doing in any way. And I think that's so changing now, which is brilliant. And, you know, in a social context, I think empathy is also what often drives us to take action. So, you know, we understand the personal challenges that someone is going through, for example, with dementia, and we're far better able to rise to the challenge of helping them. Simplicity. So I think learning to simplify things intelligently is a really critical skill as a designer in any discipline. You know, for example, in the context of visual communication, the map here of the London Underground is a really famous example of profound simplicity and functional design, and you know, for something that's otherwise very complex. So, you know, complexity slows things down. It takes time and energy to understand things. It makes things less memorable, less enjoyable, less fun. And we're far more likely to engage with things if they're simple and accessible. And I feel like good designers are constantly challenging themselves to, you know, find the simplest, most effective way of solving a problem. And that's obviously really important in the context of designing for dementia. And perhaps it's also a skill that can be applied to, you know, for example, someone looking after dementia as well. You know, it was mentioned earlier that, you know, carers have this intuitive ability to just know what to do. And I think exploring that through the lens of simplicity is really interesting. And how can we use the power of simplicity to make things easier for everyone? And then finally, last but not least, I've got humor. So as someone who's also a cartoonist, this is kind of very dear to my heart. And I think it's something that plays a very important role in dealing with challenge and problem solving and resilience as well. So as a cartoonist, you know, I seem to be wired to always look for the kind of funny side in things, or the unexpected or the surreal, you know, the kind of out of the box way of seeing things. And I'm sure, as you all know, like, humor is such a powerful tool for helping people engage with things that might be, you know, emotionally challenging, like dementia. Again, it's really great for building empathy, and also for raising awareness with the public, and, you know, destigmatizing it and creating this new culture around dementia. And I hope humor is something that we brought into these animations as well. You know, obviously it's not about, you know, making fun of things, but I know from my own kind of personal life that it's a really powerful tool for helping me overcome challenge. You know, when I'm not taking myself too seriously, then all those other things that I was talking about are much more accessible. You know, I can play, I can be more explorative. You know, I can much easier access being in a flow state, and, you know, finding the stories and simplifying things. So that kind of brings it all full circle, I guess. Yeah, so I guess to kind of end and reflect on the animations and what I hope for them, you know, I hope these animations can be a conversation starter for people. I hope they might encourage more playfulness and humor when tackling the challenges of dementia. You know, perhaps they might even inspire more designers to step up and respond to the challenges as well. And who knows, you know, perhaps maybe, you know, they might help someone with dementia at least know that we see them. You know, we care about what's going on with them, and we, you know, we want to explore this with them. And, you know, I feel like if I was diagnosed with dementia tomorrow, you know, seeing, you know, people like Enable Foundation and what they're doing would really give me hope that I'm not alone with it, which I think is really powerful. So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, the animations are available on Enable Foundation's YouTube channel if you want to watch them and share them. And yeah, I'll stop sharing. I'm really curious to hear what other people have to say as well on this.
Thank you very much for Ellie's introductions and also explaining on the animations. I hope you guys hear me well. I love the way that you unfolded in 4 keywords. Keywords is something we always use in design process, you know, play, storytelling, float state, and also humor. And I wanted to tell a little bit of a response from people from our OK Dementia Festival, and I will give Sevra time to respond to what Ellie has just shared, because in the festival, we have a sort of a public engagement that is set up in a shopping mall in Hong Kong. It's sort of like a semi-open sky garden. So any people could come in, like children, families, young couples, or maybe older people or families. And the animation is something that our team would use as the first tool to talk to people, you know, like especially to children, because it might be difficult for them to understand what is dementia. But when we show them your animations, many times small kids, they will go and try to build their own dementia things with our little bin bags, because they could get what you mean in the animation. Like, for example, they will make a character or a monster. And also when social workers, people from the NGO background, when they came, they found that the way that we use animations and this nonverbal kind of design objects to talk about dementia, it helps to turn around. For them, they will always think about dementia as something very scary, chaotic, and etc. But after seeing the animation, they will change their vocabulary with me. They will tell me that, oh, this could be something that can reverse. It is something that is not that scary. So this is what we found at this. I think this is the 8th day that we have been doing this activity at this mall. And I hope it gives a good response to you, that the animation works on that way. And maybe before we talk about why we don't use dialogue or audio in the animation, maybe we can invite Sevra to respond to Ali's work first.
Thank you so much. I think you can all hear me, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. So firstly, a huge thanks to the Enable Foundation for inviting me to be part of this, and to Ali for that amazing presentation. I'm Sevra Davis. I'm Director of Architecture, Design and Fashion at the British Council. So hello to my British Council colleagues and everyone joining us. I'm not going to do a longer introduction to the British Council, because I think as part of SPARK, the overall SPARK Festival, you've probably heard that. But I will say a little bit about the work of the Architecture, Design and Fashion team that I run, because I think it builds very well on what Ali has described today. So our work is all around creating connections and opportunities for the UK design sector around the world through collaboration and exchange. And that's really in service to promoting a deeper understanding of ourselves and our world through design. And I think that there's no better example of that than what Ali has shown today. So I would echo very strongly what Ali has said about the role that, that I feel there's a very strong role for design in tackling social issues and allowing us to think in new and different ways. And I think that the way that Ali has described it through those keywords and those approaches is very powerful. And I was asked to respond particularly to what Ali presented. And so I have one comment on that, and then actually probably throw it open with a wider question, I think, which relates to our work at the British Council. So the first thing that I think struck me in seeing this work, and particularly the animations, it sort of comes from the title, doesn't it? Which is, it's OK Dementia. It is okay to have dementia. We still view it as a social and health problem, and we do want to solve it. But I think Ali described it in the animation of the Radioheads with the young girl sort of coming to peace and seeing her grandmother's reality as okay. And actually, this is, I think, probably the most powerful thing coming out of that. So I just wanted to say that that's the thing that strikes me more than anything else. And that's important because it's also changing perceptions. And, in the space of a few minutes, I'm thinking differently about dementia. And I think someone wrote in the chat as well about how it allows us to think differently in this way. So just to commend Enable Foundation and Ali on that and all of the work that's happening. And then I suppose where I think it'd be really powerful to have a discussion builds on what we were just talking about with public engagement, which is that how we use the tools like design and storytelling that we have around us to make connections between people. And of course, that's what we do at the British Council. Our work is all about creating cross-cultural connections, but you were doing that very much as well when you were with the public engagement of the OK Dementia Festival. Certainly, I imagine there were lots of discussions with people who were had thoughts about dementia in different ways. And so my particular interest is, I suppose, maybe for Ali in working with, Ali being based in the UK and working with Enable Foundation and a Hong Kong-based team around some of the cultural differences and things that came out in exploring dementia that maybe created new knowledge that we didn't know we had, because you sort of need that dialogue. And I'd be really interested to explore that and to hear from the people who've been involved in this as to how that process went. Thanks very much.
Ellie or Yanki, would you like to respond first? I think this comes back to how can we create a more inclusive community through our design communications and also all this public program, because I think it's, for us, Enable Foundation, we think it's very important. It's not just building a dementia-friendly community, but it's really about how to get everyone get ready for the future super aging society.
Yeah, I think one of the happy challenges of the animation was that we didn't use words, we didn't use language, because it was something that we wanted it to kind of have a universal appeal and be able to show it in the UK and be able to show it in Hong Kong, and young, old, it kind of didn't matter. So in some ways that was really challenging, from the point of view of working on the story and trying to tell the story that is actually quite complex and abstract as well. But hopefully, the fact that we couldn't use, verbal language was actually an asset as well, because we had to bypass that. And, as we mentioned before, one of the things about dementia is it kind of doesn't matter where you're from or what culture you're from. There's similarities in that, and we're all in this together as well. It's, it could happen to any of us. So it's, in a way, it's a kind of a great leveler. And I don't know if Enable Foundation have got anything on that as well.
Yeah, maybe Yanki, you can share with us about the audio description version that we created for the blind. We've collaborated with Hong Kong blind associations, right?
Yeah, there's some technical problem. I can't really download it, but it will be launched on YouTube. There will be actually free version, we call it. So the one that Ali showed, or we showing, is the artistic version, which is the original ideas. But then we have done English description or English VO version, and then a Cantonese audio description version, which is I think it's really interesting. I think Cici was from British Council Hong Kong talking about this is really abstract, but I think this is our goal to really make everyone to think. As I told you in the beginning, this is really short. You need to pay a lot of attention. And I think we hope people can play again and again to really see it and rethink it. But if they really, really can't get it, I think the description version help. But original idea was we were working with the Society for the Blind in Hong Kong, and it's their service to really providing audio description for people who have visual impairment. And they've been collaborating with a lot of movies in Hong Kong. But then we have given this challenge to them that how about there's no dialogue at all? How can you describe it? And I think there was interesting discussion even with them that, okay, this is almost an audio description with we are talking about blindness, can be visual blindness, but also can be your mind blindness that you can't get this. So there was a description for you to get it. But we hope people can really see it a few times and have different interpretation, rethinking. And so for us, I think Ali did a great job. We have quite a hard time over the summertime being just like, what should we do? Is it too abstract? Do people really, really understand it? So I think even in the team, we have a lot of interpretation, worry, anxiety. I think the outcome, like Pascal was saying, was really fascinating. And I think there's somewhat unexpected. I don't think it's exactly what we imagined, but was even better. And there was so much we can think about the next step. So thank you. So sorry, I don't think we can share here, but come back to our YouTube channel. There will be, as I said, there will be free versions of this. So feel free to browse around. I think we hope that we can put it up later on the week and should be there.
Yeah, and for us, I think we are interested to hear if there's any response from Professor Lynne or also Catherine. I think maybe this is the first time you see these animations, right?
Yeah, it is. It's the first time I've seen it. I thought they were fantastic. I absolutely love anything that kind of stretches our imagination to think differently. And I really, really like the idea of play, because I do think that it's a very serious topic. And I think the more that we can, use play to, as you said so well, Ali, to kind of free up our minds and think a bit differently about it. So they're definitely thought provoking. It definitely took me a little while to kind of get my head around what was happening, but I just loved it. And I loved the way that, somebody had said, I think it was, that when you sort of show these animations to people, they do take a little while to think through, but then do start to think very differently about dementia and think that really kind of, as you said, change the narrative, use different words and vocabulary. So I thought they were fantastic. Catherine, I don't know what you felt.
I agree with everything you said. I thought they were great. I just think it's so important as well for stories to be part of this whole process. We know that stories really resonate with people, and I think they bring empathy and understanding, and usually people can really relate to them because they might have experienced something similar. And the aspect of play, I mean, who doesn't want to play? I think that's perfect.
Yeah, is Pascal here? Can I ask if you can share a little bit? Because communications is something we always talk about whenever we work on a project. We need to communicate not just to designers, but most importantly to everyday people, like to children or to all ages and etc. Probably, yeah. No, because he told us about a little bit computer thing that he's going on right now, but it's okay. I just wondered if you guys do everyone now, I spotlight here, have any question you want to know about this OK Dementia animations. And before we ask the people in the chat room about what do they have any more questions about this OK Dementia, because to a lot of people, like Yanki said in one of the sharing she had before, some people were really, really angry that we picked this name for the project and etc.
I think that's really interesting, actually, and it's worth kind of quite deep discussion, because dementia is, I speak from kind of personal experience and also kind of as a trustee, and it is a really grim experience for so many people. For many people, especially at the end of life, which I know you've done work on as well, from looking in, there aren't many positives, actually. It can be very distressing, some very challenging behavior. But I do think that actually a lot of that comes from all of us not understanding dementia enough. And actually the OK approach actually challenges us to look at a real, as I said earlier, an extreme of human condition. It actually challenges us to find new ways of looking at what the experience is, to almost use the cutting edge, boundary pushing science to say, how can we find perhaps patterns in people's behavior, all sorts of really imaginative approaches to be able to come up with solutions to help families to deal with dementia. So I can understand entirely why you got that reaction. And because, if you have any experience of dementia, there are many, many days when it feels far from being okay. But as a community coming together, and as we've said a number of times throughout the workshops, no one organization, no one country, no one geography can sort this. This is about the best of international collaboration, the best of multidisciplinary approaches coming together. And I think what Ali's animation really highlighted was that, almost stripping it back to what's important in humanity. And I loved that slide, Ali, when you were talking about play and how important it is to constantly kind of see the lighter side. But through play, you can actually address some very, very serious issues. So, I do think it is respectful of people who, did find it difficult and challenging. But I think what I've taken away from today is just that kind of, the British Council approach. I really loved hearing, Sevra, about your kind of work and that kind of need for us to come together and collaborate. And I really like the play elements and the storytelling as well.
I think this is what Tsui from Hong Kong British Council were asking the question about, do you find children understand the animation better in a way with their creativity and imagination? I think this is exactly bringing it back to the play mode that we almost forgot when we're in the adulthood. And we did find children loved it. I think children really get to the point, especially when they saw the little girl coming out with the umbrella. And I think a lot of them would smile or even laughing at this, oh, this is what we should do. And I think this is something we want to bring it back to this, like Professor Lynne was talking about this, Conor was saying, this fundamental humanities that we need to be connecting with the others and feeling their needs, not about pretentious, like, oh, I'm really worried that I may be making fun or making like some silly thing, but it's really about being with your loved one, with your heart. And I think the children really give us a lot of like reinsuring this is the right way to do. So I think this is something, and especially I will say, hopefully some more people on the YouTube channel and on the discussion can come to join us in Hong Kong for this play experience on one of a very, very expensive shopping mall. So it's a very challenging experience for us, that bringing a dementia, and not just like say OK dementia, but even we have really bad experience, people coming like, how can you talking like this expensive brand name, but then next door is talking about dementia? It's not appropriate. So something very challenging for design.
Someone from the chat room asked us a question, but I want to share one little story that I had when we were preparing the audio description script, because I was trying to reimagine if I'm someone with visual impair, how would I experience the animation when I was checking on the script and reading it? And actually what I did is I play the animation, I close my eyes, and I just listen to the sound. And there were a lot of very, very interesting tiny things inside. And I was trying, because I would try to making sense of how it works with the audio description. But maybe before we get to the Q&A, can you tell us a little bit more about the sound? Because I think being playful and being storytelling, I think every one of us, we are very used to looking at things, what they literally add. But the sound aspect, I think it gave a little bit more, like Yanki said, we have to maybe see from the heart or hear from the heart, or maybe something from there you can add a little bit of thing, so that maybe we can try other ways of looking or seeing at this animation in the coming future, or when we work with other people with different needs that could have another way of reading it as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, working on the sound was really interesting. I'm not a sound designer. I don't really have any expertise in that, but working with Paul Chauncey on the sound was amazing, because he's got such a playful attitude again to these things. So he sent me pictures of him working on it, and he had all these mad things, and he was recording sound effects and then running the sound effects through a radio to see what would happen, and crazy. He wasn't afraid to explore and experiment and just see what happened. And I think in some ways animation and film, sound design is almost kind of like seen as an afterthought, but to me sound is actually really important. It communicates a story just as much as the visuals, and we do live in a visually biased culture, but I just think sound is so important, and so perhaps underused as well, and I think there's more room to explore there. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, so there's one question from the chat room, but I want to try to invite people to respond to it in one way. From Jennifer, there is a question that she asks: is there any practical ways to avoid dementia, like specific food or mental training? And to be honest, this is something Yanki and I has been asked quite a lot of time, asking us for some practical solution and something. I believe that Professor Lynne and also Catherine has been asked a lot of time already. Maybe we can do it like a both way answering, like from designers, how would we respond to that? And also from National Innovation Center of Aging, how would you respond to that? Maybe that we can show different ways of how cross-discipline could answer to this questions. Shall we? Do you want to? Which one do you want to go first?
I can go first if that helps.
Thank
with
you.
Catherine.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a great question, and it's something that kind of we all think about, all the time. Is we've got basically as a community, we've got so much that we need to learn about what causes dementia, and indeed many other kind of conditions that are affecting kind of later life. I personally think the UK government had a campaign about 10 years ago now, which was look after your heart, look after your head, which was kind of supporting the fact that this is really all about healthy longevity. This is all about kind of, having a good lifestyle, having opportunities to get a good education, good work throughout life. And that a lot of the problems, if you like, that we can experience in later life, actually, we need to start looking at much earlier through childhood and also through midlife, through addressing that in a through life perspective. So it's not really an answer to the question directly, but I think actually, as Catherine said, seeing the whole person and actually in making sure that we all, regardless of our circumstances, have opportunities to invest in a good early life, then pays dividends into best chances of having a better later life.
I'm not sure I can add anything to that. Lynne summed it up really, really nicely. But I think in terms of dementia, it's almost that we're so successful and we've extended our lives. We're all living longer. And as a consequence, people do develop conditions in later life because they're that much older. But as Lynne says, It's about trying to maintain a healthy life for as long as possible. And that includes being socially active, being, doing the things that you enjoy, engaging your mind, keeping in contact with people. So just living life to the full for as long as possible will help people have very long and healthy lives. And then perhaps, I'm no expert in dementia diagnosis, but perhaps, delay the onset if they can.
I think maybe I want to add a bit more from the designer perspective, and then I want Sevra to say something on this, because I think my first reaction is people ask this question is because they see us as the designer, which is traditional, like, can you make, I think in Cantonese we call san hei, which is like a magic tools to avoid or even to help with dementia, and if you got it, or to prevent it. But as a design thinker, I will always say this is maybe something we always say that instead of avoiding it, we will try to turn around to say we want to prepare for it. So it's really about this mindset changing, which is about acceptance. How can we create a whole dementia instead of like just friendly culture, but actually freely culture. So then and also as a design thinker, we also see the world in a very different dimension. So Pascal talk about this parallel universe a lot, and I talk about this spectrum of things. So can we all have dementia, but maybe I only have 20% today because I am actually really active today. But then when I was really tired, some professional came the other day, asked me like, do you think I have dementia? So I just say, what symptom you got? And then he said, I started to forget to put the word not into my email. Say, I'm not coming, but actually I put I am coming. So it's always missing the lot. So maybe I think I have dementia. So I just say, maybe you're really tired that day. You just forgot to put the lot into it. So I think as a design thinker, rather than making an object to solve a problem, we're trying to use our design way of thinking and understanding the world, trying to give an alternative understanding. And I think this will be something, I think Sevra as an advocate of design in the society, we can respond a bit more on this, and how British Council have been part of this, supporting this collaboration with the other discipline.
I think the other thing as well to add to that, I mean, Catherine will smile because Catherine and I have done a lot of work on kind of with family carers looking at dementia. And it's not so much about the avoidance of it, but it's actually understanding what is the issue. And we always have the mantra that, very few family carers are broken by the fact that somebody is forgetting things or the memory problems. People do find ways to deal with that. They do find ways to cope, as hard and difficult as it is. And certainly it is challenging. But actually, dementia is accompanied by many physical problems, such as kind of, some people have kind of other illnesses, incontinence and other things like that. And it's that combination of factors coming together that make it really, really challenging for family carers. And so, as much as just thinking about, as Catherine said, about the dementia side of it, it's just so important that we all the time think of the whole person. And don't just see the dementia, but think about how we can avoid, so much of kind of the experience of dementia. Perhaps if we better designed our built environments, if our homes were more adaptable, if we could put that design thinking into kind of communities, into kind of, even looking at things like risk, because so much of people's with dementia's lives are reduced because of society's kind of appetite for kind of risk in terms of safety and those kind of concepts. But again, if we could open our minds to kind of a few, as Ali said, sort of different realities, if you like, I think that's what people need on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I can try to respond to Yanki's question. I think from from a British Council point of view, I mean, our work is not, our work is about connecting architects, designers, fashion designers, and craftspeople, and sort of the specific in the team that I work in, and those peripheral disciplines. People who are working in those areas in the UK and around the world to look at how connections across cultures might help us to progress knowledge and create new knowledge, which, for example, might then, I will not say sort of solve big issues like dementia, but will help us to progress our thinking and the solutions that we have for those. And that's where I think Lynne's point around and Yanki's point around multidisciplinary approaches, and we do need to think about how we prevent dementia, and that will be around nutrition and activity, and the way that we design our cities will have an impact on that because it has an impact on people's activity, for example. That's just one example. But we also need to look at all of the other ways too, building on what Yanki said about so there's prevention, there's also preparing for it, and then there's coming to terms with it. And I think this is where I was quite struck by the animations, again, coming back to that, and Yanki's point around that we all can see ourselves as, at times, as having dementia or living in a particular reality. Yeah, so that's probably what I'd say with that. And I think where I'm interested in the British Council's work is how connecting people and communities and organizations across the world can help us to progress the knowledge that we need to solve some of these great challenges.
Yeah, although we are overrunning a little bit, like 3 minutes, we got one more questions, but it is a good questions for us to give a wrap up to today's conversations, because from Mel, she asked, she understand that now the animations and also the jackets, we are trying to do a more general public educations for people, for young people, for the youth, for the carers, or even for the public who don't know about dementia, to have a beginning preparation or understanding of it, a more like an introductory one. So how about, are we thinking about other ways to move it into further communities? And this lead to why the reason that Enable Foundation wanted to do this OK Dementia Festival together with British Council as well to explore further, because over the past 3 to 4 years, we are not only working in Hong Kong, but also collaborating with Center for Demence in Copenhagen, also having exhibitions in Haihofen. We've really thought that it is not just about just designing a particular one tool or a few tools for a small group of people, or maybe just a introductory education program. It's more that we wanted to go into the community, like having not only having talks, but we have workshops in community centers. We have community screening of dementia movies and talk with people about what we can do further in the future. And also Yanki and I are also trying to see how our work in the past 3 years, like for example, the exhibitions that we've done from showing all the ideas from the young design students that we've been worked to think about new ideas, new ways of rethinking about dementia, or think about new ways of living with dementia. And also here is some slides that we want to share with you. Is apart from our OK Dementia Festival, where we work with local NGOs in Hong Kong, where the centers, for example, this one, we work with Sage, who is one of the biggest elderly caring service center in Hong Kong. They have a room that's dedicated to the community of dementia and their carers, where they will use reality-oriented patients, where usually they will use methods like talking about time and date, and we suggest them, can we use a room to talk about seasons? And they can come for coloring, they can come and talk about seasons, and even the community can come. So you can see there were like kids coming to draw. They talk about what they like in the summer, they talk about what they want to do in the coming autumn, and this is a relaxing place for everyone, and for everyone to meet, not only just for the dementia community, but also for the whole estate and that area of the citizens. And also we are developing tools that will look into the strength of each person. In one of the oldest public estate in Hong Kong, the Wah Fu village. So we took inspiration from the Mocha test. We transform it into 7 different games. So we call them games or tools for people to understand more about each individual strengths. So instead of like we are testing people, it's more like a gathering or a social collective activities that
instead of like a A4 page of Mocha, I think Lynne and Catherine possibly know about this Mocha, but we use it as we design a full cafe experience to let people to really testing the 7 elements that have been defined by the medical expert. And I think this is a good example to answer the last question, is how can we going to spread this? I think we up to the stage we have a lot of data and research coming from carers, and then we pass it to the young people and giving more ideas and how they can understand this and what they suggest can we do. And then now it's time really bring it back to the community. So in the festival, we went back to a lot of our collaborators NGO and changing from exhibition design back to a real like a transformation box that we design all these tools become a box that then transform a dementia cafe anywhere in the community. So become something, so Pascal, the timetable is one of them. So we're going to make this into a box game that people can transfer it into different training session, even bringing, giving carers to bring it home for people to talk about it. So I think the last question is exactly what we want to do. The next step is how can we translate what we have from our research, but not this of scientific research. I think we took scientific research into narrative like Ali, animation, and then now it's time to really bring it back to the community and collaborate with our NGO like service provider, giving everyone more ideas how this new design thinking objects can be used into community.
Yeah, and maybe we can conclude with the dementia and play and our Hodgson newest dementia not BIMBAT, right? We're calling it the dementia figures or something like that. As a conclusion, that we hope this new tools or new engagement that we design will help to reach into the future programs that we're gonna have. Yanki, maybe you can talk a little bit about this dementia and play.
Yeah, I think Ali talked about play, and we also did this with another NGO, which is they have a toy library in Hong Kong for they have been adopting a lot of toys from children playing into elderly center to become some interactive tools, training tools for elderly, and some of them with dementia. But what we've been challenging them is how can we look at from games, which is with rules and boundary, into toys with open interpretation into tools for expression. So you can see that from this desktop, what we call the ice-breaking tools into this body storming, using your body tell your story about what you think about dementia. So I think this is something with Ali animation is part of this like continued exploration of non-verbal design and intervention to really engaging everyone, all ages, all culture, and to play together. I think this is really important.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry, we have to probably wrap up and say thank you to all our speakers today, and especially to Professor Lynne Corner and Catherine from the Newcastle, Newcastle National International Center of Aging, and also Sevra Davis from British Council. And also we have to thank you, British Council, for inviting us for this SPARK festival. It's really amazing to join this online festival with you all and talk about inclusiveness and also this new way of trying to engage with the public through design. And last but not least, we must thank you, Ellie, and also Pascal, for collaborating with us on this creative journey. I might have some symptoms too, but it's okay because we are all ready to be.
It's been a great session. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we hope you have a good evening. And for people in Hong Kong, please come and join us at Hodgson Place. This will be our last 2 days of the events. So thank you very much. We hope you have a very good weekend. So see you soon in our events, OK Dementia Festival. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Oh, 都走晒。Should I